This book is a brand new offering geared towards kids and fans of Marvel of any age who might want to learn some magic. But even if you're not a new magician, keep watching because we're going to have a discussion about what makes a good beginner's magic book, and I would love to see your input via the comments down below. The premise of this new book is that author Rob Perlman found an ancient manuscript written by Loki to, well, Loki. The god of mischief anticipated that he may well lose his powers at some point in the future, and he wanted to ensure that he has a way to at least display those powers on Earth, even if he has no more godlike powers. So he wrote this manuscript to himself to explain how to perform similar magic on Midgard without any actual real powers. Loki, Marvel, magic, cool, right? In this episode of Erudite Magic, we're going to examine this beginner book and help you decide whether it's for you or someone in your life who wants to get started in magic. As I read through this book in preparation for this episode, it made me ask the question, what makes a good beginner's magic book? And for that matter, do beginner books even matter? Should beginners be learning from books? Let's face it, it's been a long time since most of us have been beginner magicians and a lot of things have changed. But as this book is proof, people are still drawn to the time-tested approach of learning from a good instructional book. And this one is definitely themed to make the material interesting. But does it work? Over the years, the beginner's magic book of choice has changed. For many, it was the Amateur Magician's Handbook. Others swear by Mark Wilson's Complete Course in Magic. My personal recommendation is Joshua Jay's Magic: The Complete Course. These 3 volumes are still widely available, so it's impossible to discuss Loki's book without the obvious comparisons to these time-tested volumes. And as I pondered this episode, a couple of things kept coming to the surface that these books had in common. Since a beginner really has no idea what kind of magic they want, each of these books has a very large selection of tricks from which to choose so that it walks the neophyte down the road and helps them hone in on what it is they like and what they might want to pursue further. Secondly, and along those same lines, they have a variety of different props and situations that they address because you just don't know where this new magician is going to want to fit in. And they have varying degrees of difficulty. There are some things that are practically self-working to help someone build up some confidence, but there are also pieces that maybe require a little more dexterity and more demanding so that people can see that there's progress to be made. At the end of the day, though, each one of them has great magic material. So the question is, does Loki's book of magic and mischief live up to that standard? Whether you're in the market for beginner books or you're someone who's advanced beyond that and is looking for rare and out-of-print gems, shop with the sponsor of this week's episode, Don's Magic and Books. Don carries a large number of books in inventory, so everything you order is ready to go out right away. You can expect fast and free shipping if you meet certain thresholds in the United States. And this week, you can save 10% off of everything in the beginner umbrella on Don's website if you enter the code Loki at checkout. There are some great books listed under that section, and I know you're going to enjoy the savings. So don't forget to use the code this week as you shop with Don's Magic and Books. Quickly, a bit about the book. It is a softcover book, approximately 100 pages with 35 tricks. Everything is well illustrated, and while the style of the book pays homage to its comic book roots, that's not exactly the format. It's more of a traditional magic book with a hook at the beginning to kind of tell you what the premise of the trick is, what supplies you'll need, how you can put it together, and then the step-by-step instructions for how to present it. And as you can probably infer from the size, right off the bat, it misses that first check that I said most of those other books have, which is a larger size. The beginner books that I mentioned earlier definitely have more pages. Joshua Jay's book has almost 300. Mark Wilson's has over 500. And the Amateur Magician's Handbook clocks in around 400. Obviously, size isn't everything, but the bigger the book, the more tricks are taught in it. In this one, as I said, there are 35 tricks. And the book is $20 from Amazon.com if you elect to purchase a physical copy. Most of the other books that I mentioned, while they are older, they do have multiples of this number of tricks for less money. So you're obviously paying a hefty premium for the Marvel brand name and theme. But let's not prejudge Loki's material. Perhaps the books that we're used to would overwhelm the beginner. What it lacks in quantity, perhaps it can make up in quality, which brings us to the tricks. As far as the variety of the props, it does use a lot of different materials. Money, crayons, water, ice, foods, kitchen items, office supplies, cloth, string, etc. Mostly items that you would already expect people to have around their house, so there aren't a lot of special things you need to go get. And when there's a gimmick to be constructed, it teaches you how to do so clearly. There's also variety in the performance conditions. While a lot of the material would be suitable for performing for friends and family, there are also pieces that would play for a larger size audience, like a parlor audience. For example, there's a levitation effect and a lime inside a bottle that would be much better if there was some distance between you and your audience, and you had an area in the front that you could control the angles and how close the audience could get. So for my second criteria of diversity, we have to give it a thumbs up. As far as growth potential, the tricks within the book are broken up into 3 different sections, basically easy, medium, and hard. But since this is a beginner's book, nothing's really too hard. As you might imagine, the items that fall into that first section could be categorized more as puzzles and curiosities than real magic. But they're still interesting and part of what made all of us magic curious. The book's presentational aspects do leave a little bit to be desired for the average human. I say that because the book's theme necessitates the standpoint of presenting the magic as if you were Loki. And the scripts are focused around that narrative within the Marvel Universe. That works great as a hook to get you to read the book, but that works less well in terms of presentation. Unless you're going to present these tricks to people pretending to be Loki, you're going to have to invent your own script to go with the tricks, which for a beginner would probably be more difficult than someone who has more experience. And because the book was not authored by a magician, it's completely silent on key points in magic like misdirection, audience management, practice, etc. But let's talk some specifics about the tricks themselves. It does run the gamut. As already mentioned, there are some optical illusions and basic magic tricks like the magnetic pencil, as well as water that stays within a bottle until you command it to leave. But there are also some really good tricks tipped in here, like the cut and restored thread, card through Bill, and the 2-card Monty. Plus, there are quite a few tricks that are in between those 2 spectrums of optical illusions and puzzles and great magic tricks that are quite serviceable. But as previously mentioned, if you're not explaining how you can magically trap Doctor Strange through the analogy of a coin through a glass, it may be challenging for you to come up with presentations to show these tricks to an audience. Unlike a lot of the other books that we mentioned at the beginning, there are no additional resources like history, where you can learn more, the theory of how and why a magic trick works, which I think ultimately damages the goal of getting magicians started. Look, no book is perfect, and this one definitely missed on a few of the criteria that I determined would be good for a beginner's magic book, but that doesn't make it a bad book. So who would be the best target audience for a book like this? I think this is a good entry point for young magicians who are potentially interested in Marvel and maybe they've got a magic kit or they've heard a little bit about magic and would like to pursue it further. There are definitely some tricks in here that are really cool, and they could be performing those for friends and family. They could even present it as a trick they learned from a manuscript they found written by Loki. I think if you're buying this for the Marvel content, you're likely to be a little bit disappointed that it's not really a comic book. There are a couple of illustrations of Loki. Most of the illustrations themselves are just hands and the props, sometimes with a torso. And then in between each section of the easy, medium, and hard, you'll see some of the graphic novel art that has probably already been in other Loki manuscripts. And if you're buying this for the magic content, you might be slightly disappointed that it is not bigger given the price point. But I think another valuable reason to get this for a young magician in your life is that it can teach them one of the most important lessons, which is that magic can be learned from books. And that, my friends, is worth its weight in gold. Let me hear from you down in the comments below. What was the first book that got you started on magic, and what did you value about that beginner aspect? If you'd rather have a meatier book for the beginner in your life, then be sure to check out this review that I did on the book that I recommend for beginners. As always, my friends, I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading.